we turn to dig deeper into something that's talked about a lot, but not always with much specificity. What about these young voters who powered Obama and often lean left in American politics? Remember one thing, if nothing else. It was young voters who overwhelmingly preferred Obama in that first election when he was up against so many headwinds and was a first-time candidate by that whopping 68% to 30%. So people under 30 were the widest margin of any age group for Obama. That's what Harris is eyeing. Now, for Biden, they were also clutch because in 2020, they were favoring him, as you see, by about 20 points. And that's even when you count up a bit above what they call Gen Z into millennial. And that's just from the nonpartisan Pew Center. So take it together and you're reminded that whether you're at that super high record-breaking Obama youth enthusiasm or a good enough to win 2020 youth enthusiasm for Biden, along with what Sheikh Omanduri mentioned, which was support from white voters and others in that coalition, either way, a big edge in youth is a key part of that. And it was a lot of young voters that we kept hearing earlier this year were not excited about these two candidates. The challenge, though, is even if young voters now prefer Harris more, and we've shown you evidence that they do, whether they turn out. Because I just showed you how much they helped Obama, but they traditionally, in many other years when they didn't have an Obama reason to turn out, show up at the lowest rates of any age group. Youth turnout was as low as 1/3 for voters under 25 back in '88. And that was one of the reasons that there was a huge effort launched back then that you might remember called Rock the Vote. It launched in 1990. That was a pre-internet era, but they had some pretty big names getting people's attention on TV, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers or a PSA by none other than Madonna.
We need beauty, we need art, we need government with art. Get in rhythm. Don't give up your freedom of speech. Power to the people is in our reach. Don't just sit there, let's get to it. Speak your mind, there's nothing to it. Vote!
Now, that was considered very edgy at the time. Madonna, you saw her outfit, far less clothing than Megan Thee Stallion this week, and a reminder that people can decide for themselves how they want to engage in politics, how they want to present themselves, and whether that gets people more involved. Now, you can hear a little bit of the sound we just had there. That was Bill Clinton on Arsenio with the sax. That itself was considered a funky, casual, untraditional way to engage two of the communities we've talked about in this coalition tonight, minority voters and younger voters.
There are a lot of young people who don't think they should vote at all anymore.
The reason those kids should vote is that this country's been around for more than 200 years. And the only way the people can have a say is when they're in the driver's seat. You're in the driver's seat at election time. If you don't get in the car, you can't drive.
Bill Clinton, with the kind of logic that might make sense to an 18-year-old who remembers what a big deal it was to get behind the driver's seat, right? Now, there are a lot of different factors that drive whether and how the younger generation votes. As we know, they are the busier generation trying to get their lives together, maybe get a job or go to school. Voting is not something they do as often as seniors and others who have time to think about it, maybe have learned through wisdom that if you don't make the choice, someone else will make it for you. I should tell you that voter turnout did tick up after that. In '08, Obama also harnessed the young voters, as we've been discussing, and it was also his messaging that seemed to really, truly connect with a type of enthusiasm, positivity, and optimism about the future.
There is something happening. There's something happening when Americans who are young in age and in spirit, who've never participated in politics before, turn out in numbers we have never seen because they know in their hearts that this time must be different. Together, we will begin the next great chapter in the American story with 3 words that will ring from coast to coast, from sea to shining sea. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. And I'll put the number back up that I told you because it's the most important one. The Harris strategists and former Obama strategist David Plouffe, joining the campaign officially today, are looking at beating McCain by over 30 points among young people. Now, in 2020, young voters also showed up. They voted Democratic and helped power Biden's coalition, as we've mentioned. And remember, if you look at these numbers overall, even that year, 2020, even the year that Trump lost, I was just checking this as we were going to air, Donald Trump won more voters over age 50. So even in the year he lost, he had the older electorate. And so Democrats know what this looks like. They're going to compete for every vote, of course, but the older you get in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the more that has traditionally been Trump's terrain, even in his losing year. So you really got to shore up the youth. And there are a lot of young people who look at all that and are continually, basically, fatigued and tired of the Trump era, but also energized to try to stop him one more time. That was a theme we saw in the contrast between wanting to stop Trump and whether to give Biden a second term.
Young voters under 25 are taking to the streets and to social media to oppose President Trump.
63% of Biden supporters said they were more driven by fear of President Trump's reelection than enthusiasm for Biden.
That can be a problem for a candidate. And before Biden exited the race 2 weeks ago, the polls showed him struggling with young voters. NPR said it was a glaring issue. Newsweek called it an overall collapse in the polling. Check Newsweek now, and they're talking about Kamala Harris's, quote, youthquake, a double-digit measurable increase among young people who are suddenly turned back to politics and specifically energized by at least learning more about Kamala Harris, if not outright becoming Harris activists. PBS calls it a surge of energy. And then there is the way we live now. Remember, it was a big deal that Obama was raising money by email. Okay, they had a great email campaign, which Plouffe and Axelrod and Joe Rospar, some of the other digital staff, were doing at the time that helped them beat what was thought to be Clinton's main edge, that she would have more money throughout the whole primaries. That was new then. Email is now, old school. And what's new is TikTok, which is much more prevalent among younger voters, and which, interestingly, Trump was doing pretty good at until the last 2 weeks, when the cool stuff and the viral stuff and a lot of the news stuff turned back to Harris. That's moving around the internet faster than any op-ed or think piece. And that's part of what the Harris campaign wants to build on here. A youth surge that can be organic and use the tools of today to try to win the election of tomorrow.